time, you are hearing from an accused killer from behind bars. Wade Wilson is charged with killing 2 Cape Coral women. It's been nearly 4 years since Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz were murdered.
Over the last 6 months or so, Wilson sent letters to NBC2 making some wild accusations, from claiming his innocence to a conspiracy that reaches the depths of Lee County institutions. Did you kill Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
We wasted no time getting straight to the point. For a man potentially facing death, Wade Wilson had a lot to say. His appearance today is much more sinister than some of his early court hearings when he was first charged with murder more than 3 years ago.
I'm not a monster. Yeah, I'm not a saint either by any means. I've made bad decisions in the past, of course.
He admits he met Christine Melton at a bar during a night of drinking and spent the night at her Cape Coral home. But he claims he left the next morning and she was alive. Even your own father testified that you called him saying you met Melton at a bar, you spent the night together, you went back to her house, and you didn't know why, but you choked her, rolled her up in a carpet. How do you explain that?
Right. Well, you know, those things that were said to my father, they were said by me. Of course, they were false, too.
Cape Coral police say while driving Melton's car, Wilson picked up mother of 2 Diane Ruiz, choked her, and ran her over multiple times. As for the confessions to his father,
I was forced. That wasn't a call that I willingly wanted to make.
Wilson claims it's all part of a conspiracy being covered up, one that he's trying to expose. He says he was recruited from Key West to be part of a crime organization in Lee County.
A lot of things that we were doing from Key West to Fort Myers, including the human trafficking, including, various other things, prostitution with the women, drug trafficking.
Wilson says some of the prostitution was happening at a local spa, and he can prove there was nefarious activity happening there. What's the proof?
Cell phone records will show, text messages will prove, and these are things that my lawyers already have.
When I called Wilson's lawyer, he wouldn't answer any of my questions. I'm not sharing the name or location of the spa. Wilson claims Lauren DeMolo worked there, Cape Coral's most well-known missing persons case. She hasn't been seen since 2020. Wilson says high-profile people use that spa, and some of the people involved in the alleged crime ring are testifying against him in his murder trial.
I am the loose end that is so easily just X'd out.
Talking with Wilson, it really does appear like he's trying to curry favor and save his own life. He talked a lot about former Lee County Sheriff Mike Scott. I talked with Scott on the phone. He told me Wilson's allegations are outlandish and not true. So now let's talk about that alleged crime ring. Fort Myers police told me they haven't found anything regarding human trafficking. Cape Coral police said the Lee County Sheriff's Office and the state attorney's office are aware of his claims, but they're not looking into it because it didn't happen within their jurisdiction. LCSO said they couldn't answer my questions, and same with the state attorney's office. And as far as Wilson's claims about Lauren DeMolo, Cape Coral police said they don't think there's any connection between the two because Wilson was locked up before DeMolo.
The man accused of murdering 2 women in Cape Coral just tried to escape from jail, but Wade Wilson didn't get too far. Thanks for watching NBC2. I'm Peter Bush.
And I'm Kelly Burns. Wilson is accused of 2 brutal murders in Cape Coral. Almost a year ago to the day, police say Wilson went on a drug-fueled killing spree, murdering 2 women in 48 hours. Christine Melton on the left and Diane Ruiz closest to me. Tonight, Wilson, along with his cellmate Joseph Katz, are in even more trouble. Reports say they tried to smash through a window and break out of jail. NBC2's Ashley Dyer is live at the jail right now on Ortez Avenue, showing us how deputies caught the pair.
Wade Wilson is accused of viciously murdering Ruiz and Melton last October. Less than a year later, he faces new charges. Deputies say last night Wilson tried to break out of the jail through a window. Last night, Wade Wilson, who faces 2 first-degree murder charges, and his cellmate Joseph Katz tried to pull a get-out-of-jail-free card.
The window in particular in question, they started to remove some of the weather stripping, okay, and they started to work on that window with a couple of bolts.
You can see the damage in the bottom right corner.
This just proves that he's not a good person.
Lee County Sheriff Carmine Marcino says the men plan to use a window as their escape route. The sheriff calling it a failed attempt from the start.
There was no way to get through that window physically, even if it was open, okay? Furthermore, we have a series of layers after that they would have to penetrate to get out, and that's not happening.
The attempt to flee his prison cell comes almost 1 year exactly after Melton and Ruiz were found dead. Diane's boyfriend can vividly remember.
October 7th was the day he killed her and she became missing. So I'm not looking forward to that day.
Ruiz was found dead in a field in northwest Cape Coral. Melton found dead inside of her home.
She was a funny girl, you know. She was always happy. She was just super nice. Yeah, she was a good girl.
Debbie McCabe lived right next to Christine.
Christine was a really, really quiet person. And I could hear beer bottles hitting the garbage.
And was home the night she was murdered.
I didn't see him. I heard him.
After Christine was killed, Debbie installed an alarm system.
I just can't imagine him being out again. He scared me.
As family and friends continue to grieve the loss of Melton and Ruiz, they're relieved to know Wade Wilson will be sleeping right where he woke up, behind bars.
He should be locked away for the rest of his life.
In addition to the 2 first-degree murder charges that Wilson faces, he and Katz now also face attempt to escape a prison and criminal mischief charges. I'm live in Lee County, Ashley Dyer, NBC2.
Wade Wilson has a pretty disturbing record. He was already a felon before the murders of Diane Ruiz and Christine Melton. Wilson had been arrested several times in Lee and Palm Beach counties. He's accused of raping another woman he was dating in Fort Myers. He was arrested for that, but once again bonded out. He's also accused of stealing from his girlfriend and pawning her stuff. After he bonded out that time, he kept skipping court dates. NBC2 spoke with Wilson's ex-girlfriend on the phone when he was arrested for the murders last year. Just listen to some of the horrible things she says he did.
Tied me up in the back of my own car and tied my mouth shut and my arms and legs and beat the crap out of me.
He has 2 sides to him. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He absolutely can be the sweetest guy that you've ever met in your whole life. But he's also a monster.
Count on NBC2 to stay on top of this story.
30 days. A judge will decide whether Wade Wilson will spend the rest of his life in prison or be put to death. I'm Fox 4 senior reporter Caitlin Knapp. And since the trial started, I've been covering it every step of the way. And because of that, I found out that people have been writing to the judge from across the country, asking him to spare Wilson's life. Judge Nick Thompson has received more than 10 letters, some pages long. One person said in their 7-page letter, "Please let Wade live." Another, "He is a human being who, despite his flaws, deserves mercy and the possibility of rehabilitation." On top of that, there are petitions online with more than 30,000 signatures asking the judge to spare Wilson's life. And though it's not clear if it's legitimate, someone started a Fundly, raising more than $11,000 for Wilson's, quote, legal and medical support. So how much of all of this does a judge have to take into consideration legally? I talked to a lawyer to find out. The trial and conviction of Wade Wilson has gone viral. Now we wait to see if Judge Nick Thompson will sentence Wilson to life in prison or death.
The judge can go either way. He can say death penalty or he can say life without parole.
FGCU professor and lawyer Pamela C. says despite the jury recommending death,
there is no mandate that says he has to do what the jury recommends.
Since the recommendation, people from South Carolina, California, and as far as Canada are sending these letters to the judge, asking him to spare Wilson's life. Does the judge have to take any of that into account?
No, he does not. The judge has to take into account the recommendation from the jury and the factual information that is available to him from the trial itself, both the guilty phase and the penalty phase.
But there's a catch.
However, if the judge happens to read them and sees, well, I hadn't thought about it that way, perhaps the judge can use it in asking questions of the prosecution and defense and needing further information.
The judge does have the law as a baseline.
The judge looks to the aggravating circumstances and looks to only those aggravating circumstances that were determined unanimously by the jury.
He looks at mitigating circumstances, what the defense presented during the penalty phase. There's also what's called a Spencer hearing, where both sides show the judge more evidence.
The judge will look to what does the law say when it relates to the penalty to be given for this offense.
Wilson is expected to be sentenced on August 27th, and like I've been doing, I will be in that courtroom to bring the decision. Caitlin Knapp, Fox.
We, the jury, find by a vote of 9-3 that Wade Wilson should be sentenced to death.
Jurors made that recommendation for both Christine's and Diane's murders. It's a decision Assistant State Attorney Sarah Miller calls a relief.
You know, you're asking someone to take another life, and so it's always a difficult thing. But I think in this case, it was a justified act, given just the horrific nature of this case.
Miller says this is not only justice for the women, but a win for other victims.
We've heard from many women who have been victimized by the defendant, but maybe didn't go forward on charges or for whatever reason didn't find justice in the justice system.
Over the past day, they heard from the families of Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz. They also heard from doctors before the final pleas from both sides on Tuesday. Assistant State Attorney Sarah Miller focused on the killings themselves.
Both murders were especially heinous, atrocious, and cruel. He inflicted pain, and he showed utter indifference to her life.
Miller showed evidence, a curtain rod with blood on it, comparing it to the weight of the decision. The attorney then honed in on the diagnoses by doctors.
It's not credible that mental illness caused the defendant to murder Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz. He was under the influence of power, of lust, of control, of hate.
And Wilson's drug addiction.
Many people, ladies and gentlemen, suffer from drug addiction, but they don't go out and commit murders.
Defense attorney Kevin Shirley asked jurors to focus on Wilson's state of mind.
He's sick. He's got a diseased mind. There's something wrong with his brain. It doesn't work like everybody else's does.
Shirley also read a letter from Wilson's adoptive sister.
Wade, like his birth mother, became a victim of his diseased mind that is now overtaken by the monster of disease and addiction.
Even though the jury recommends the death penalty, the judge will have the final say, but state law says he has to weigh their decision heavily.
Hey, what's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Appreciate you guys checking out the channel. Hope you all are well. Jumping off August here, we're going to be talking about a guy we talked about briefly in my last video, Wade Wilson out of Florida. I did the video on the Unforgiven white supremacy prison gang. And honestly, just to be straight up about it, I posted the video. I actually had put his name in the title at first, and I quickly took it out after a while because I wanted to know more about him. I wanted to get some more information. I wanted to get his background, his childhood, and I wanted to try to explain why he did what he did. Because I'll be honest, he's kind of eye-catching, and not just because of the tattoos. It's just, I don't know, something about him. He's got the Joker tattoo. I get all that. But there's just something there that I don't know what it was, but I wanted to research. I wanted to try to understand more and get more information, and that's exactly what I've been doing over the last couple of days. So, Wade Wilson, out of Florida, convicted murderer. We know all that, right? But I got some more personal details. So he was born on May 20th, 1994. His birth parents had him very, very young when they were about 15 to 16 years old. His biological mother actually, and they say a lot of this, right, with murderers or serial killers and stuff, there seems to always be a correlation between mother issues, okay? And this is no different. Mother struggled with mental health issues and addiction issues. The grandparents were kind of the saving grace. They went to church with the family by the name of the Wilson family. They had 2 daughters of their own, and they actually adopted Wade sometime after birth. So I really hope in this video I can give some information that other people didn't give. So yes, he was adopted. By his adoptive family's account, he was well adjusted and an active member of the family as a child. But at age 13, he flipped a switch. He completely changed. He became paranoid, reclusive, and by Wade's own admission, became a heavy drug user. On one occasion, he was paranoid as he felt people were watching his family and wanted the blinds closed. On another occasion, he was paranoid that there was an entity in the garage. So an entity is like a spirit, a ghost. His father did not understand there to be anything in the garage. The police were called and noted the same. at age, and this is young, guys. I mean, at age 13, he was subject to the Baker's Act because his adoptive dad found drugs. He was released the next day. Throughout his schooling, he received good or okay grades, A's, B's, and C's, and was great at sports. As a child-adolescent, he sustained multiple head injuries from playing sports, some of these resulting in a concussion. Now, I want to stop right there because if you like true crime, if you like studying serial killers and murderers and all that stuff, and I'll admit it, I do, problems with the mother and head trauma directly correlate to murderers. They absolutely do. Look it up. If you do not want to take my word for it, absolutely look it up. So, I mean, that's why I wanted to read this. That's exactly why I wanted to do this video, to understand this. Now, quickly, I didn't want to just gloss over, what is the Baker Act, okay? An individual may be taken to a receiving facility for involuntary examination under the Baker Act if there is reason to believe he or she has a mental illness, and due to the mental illness, the individual has refused or is unable to determine if examination is necessary. Without care or treatment, the individual is unlikely to care for themselves, and it's based on recent behavior and all that. So that's what his parents had him do. So his parents basically had him committed to a facility, is what I'm reading from that. So just to give you a quick overview on that. So, suspended from school for selling drugs, and a lot of this reads kind of, I hate to say it, but it's like, man, if you're reading this as like a story or a movie, you're like, how did the movie end? And how it ends is not surprising. At age 18 and again at 20, he sustained head injuries from car accidents where the car he was in collided with the tree. At least one of these led to a concussion. So, serious head trauma all throughout his teens and early into adulthood. I'm going to assume the car wrecks at that age had something to do with drug and alcohol abuse. Speaking from personal experience, I wrecked, in 2016 to 2018, I wrecked three cars because of my drug use. Totaled out completely. Lucky to be alive. Swear to God. And that's wrecked. Not to mention other times where I fender bendered or backed into things, all out of it, all blacked out. Pharmaceutical stuff, you guys can take it from there. But yeah, I can definitely understand that. He had CT scans performed, which is your brain scans, multiple times due to the various sports and car accidents. The CT scans never showed any fracture or bleeding. MRIs were not performed, which is basically that can give more detailed information on the brain. So we don't really know for sure. He was in and out of prison as a young adult. Starting in 2010, he was charged for 20 different crimes. So Wade Wilson's 3 years, we're about 3 years apart in age. So 20 different crimes, including assault and fraud. While in prison, awaiting trial for the murders, he tattooed a swastika on his head and his face. When asked about it in a prison phone interview, he refused to address the topic. Wade's biological father stated at age 18, Wade reached out to him, and they spoke over the phone. And Wade would constantly reach out when he needed something, and it says in parentheses, money. Many diagnoses of mental health, depression, anxiety, schizophrenic disorder, a combination of bipolar, schizophrenic, defiance disorder, and antisocial personality disorder. So, man, it's just a recipe for disaster. Self-reported depression and mania in prison. He'd previously been diagnosed with ADD. So, I'll be honest, as I'm reading this, I have some sympathy because some of this stuff I suffered with. I suffered from extreme anxiety. I know I wasn't like ADHD hyper, but I did have ADD, probably still do. I'm a high-strung individual. I'm constantly on the go. I'm constantly stressed out. I have constant anxiety. And so I can kind of understand some of this. There was an incident in jail where he was jumped by 3 inmates, leading to another head injury. So he went through it. Okay, he'd been through it. Then, Wade and his cellmate attempted to escape from jail, stemming from an incident in 2020. Through these court records, Wade was tied to the white supremacy prison-based gang Unforgiven. Okay, and that's how we tied into the last video. All right, a former girlfriend, Kelly Matthews. That's when we talked about another thing. She'd spoken out about the media, done TikTok videos discussing details on the abuse. Don't want to go too much in that because you guys already saw that video, but he admitted to the killings in his original police interview. So, the killings. On October 7th, 2019, Wade Stephen Wilson murdered 2 women, Christine Melton and Diane Ruiz, in Cape Coral, Florida. Wade met Christine for the first time at the Buddha, a night spot, on October 6th, 2019, so the day before. The next day, while she was asleep, he strangled her to death and took her car. So they obviously went home together or something along those lines. Later that morning, he encountered Diane Ruiz while she was walking to work, and he asked her for directions. Once in his car, Wade strangled Diane. When he saw that she had not died, he ran her over. And it says multiple times, but I actually saw that it was like 15 to 20 times. The same morning, he also viciously attacked his ex-girlfriend, Mila Montanez, and tried to drag her into the car. She managed to escape, and the police were called. Wade was arrested on October 8th, 2019, where he has since remained behind bars. He ends up getting convicted. He gets sentenced to death over these last few years. So there you guys have it, a crazy story. There's the background on Wade Wilson. Really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Appreciate, again, all the love, all the support. Until next time, peace.